Duke's has twang. Does your Mayo have it? Do you ask for it by name when you go out to eat? Do you display your devotion to it for all the world to see? Can it elevate your lime cilantro aioli to a level that's borderline holy? If not, you're probably using the wrong Mayo. That's because only Duke's Mayo has twang. It's that little southern something that elevates food from good to downright ridiculous. Get Duke's. It's got twang.
Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome into the Gramlich and McLean podcast, brought to you by Duke's Mayo. This is our final episode before Christmas, but do not fret, we will be back with a vengeance. We will have Duke's Mayo Bowl preview. We will have Orange Bowl preview next week, starting on Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. But I just want to say, Mac, we hope that everyone out there has a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. We hope you have a great time with your friends and family. Just enjoy that time you have together, be in the moment. So season's greetings.
That's right. No arguments about anything. Just be
about
calm,
football.
Slow down, everyone be happy. Because that's what this is all about. I love the holiday season. This is one of my favorite times, just with the weather, the beautiful lights, and, of course, the biggest meaning of the season. Oh,
you're liking this weather, Mac? How it's like Arctic temperatures in the south?
Yeah. You know what this is? This is hoodie and shorts weather, KG, always.
It is too cold for shorts. Are you kidding?
I got a lot of insulation, a lot of hair on the legs, so I'm good. I'm good there. But, yeah, super excited for this time of year. And I'm super excited for this episode. Our guy joining us, Ryan Switzer, UNC alum, UNC legend, Tar Heel, just fanatic. I was looking up some of his stats just a couple of minutes ago, KG. I'm like, this dude was so good. I mean, obviously I remember that because we played against each other and seeing him. But just when you go back and look at the numbers, I mean, he led the country in punt return yards as a true freshman. Dude was an All-American as a true freshman. Had 5 touchdowns punt return. That's a game changer. That's an absolute game changer. And then his senior year, we talk about this in the interview. He decides to come back, had a massive year as a receiver, over 1,000 yards, was just really the go-to guy for anything they needed. But I really enjoyed this interview, just kind of talking some off-the-field stuff, what he's doing, what he wants to do, and then also, of course, his thoughts on the Tar Heels this season, what they're going to do in this bowl game. Really fun interview. You guys are going to enjoy it. Let's get right to it. Joined now by Switz, man. I've been waiting on this one. I've been waiting on this bowl game to jump on with you, man. A Tar Heel legend. And, of course, we have the Holiday Bowl coming up. But first, we want to talk about you and things that you've been up to. We were talking before we started recording here, and you're kind of easing into retirement, you said. So what's been up with you and your family, my man?
What's up, guys? Hey, first of all, I just want to say thanks for having me on, Eric and Kelly. I've really enjoyed following your guys' stuff throughout the year. You put out tremendous content. So I was an honor to be a part of it. It's been a cool and kind of weird last 6 months for me, man. I got hurt again in July in a workout with the Texans that kind of forced my hand into shutting it down. I've had a couple surgeries since then. So really this time has been about being present with my family, getting healthy from a physical standpoint, and just kind of enjoying not really many responsibilities outside of the home. I will tell you though, as we creep towards, bowl season and, NFL playoffs, I can tell that I'm ready. You know what I mean? I can tell that I am ready to get back into the swing of things. So it's been a great couple of months, man, and my family and I have really enjoyed the time we've spent. And I'm looking forward to getting back into it.
We were talking about this before we came on, but we can relate. I think the thing I miss the most is just the competitive side, competing in something. And, I make up for it in other things, which sometimes leads to fights with my husband over random board games, but whatever, we move on from that. But we hear, Switz, you may be interested in possibly the coaching route. We're excited about that. You were thinking coaching TV, something like that. What intrigues you about coaching?
Yeah, so when I started, when I got into retirement and really the last couple of years of my career, as you start trying to figure out what the next 30, 40 years of your life is going to look like. There was really only two routes for me, it seemed. There was, do I want to try to get into media, or do I want to stay in it, in a capacity like coaching? And for me, I felt like just as you just touched on, like the competitiveness of the game, right? I felt like from a physical standpoint, I couldn't compete anymore. I could not hold up. But the urge and the itch to have a hand in helping a team win and preparing, like that was one of the biggest things about the National Football League that I fell in love with, was how hard it was to win each week and what really went into trying to win. And so I think that part of me, that flame inside of me, is still very much lit, which kind of prompted my move to get into coaching. I've been reaching out, touching base with a lot of connections that I've made in the NFL and at the collegiate level to try to see what's going to be open. And I'm really excited to see where it takes me. And I'm just looking forward to giving back. Like I've been fortunate enough to learn so much about this game of football. I've been around some of the greatest players of all time. Like not many people can say that. Like I wasn't one of them, but I was fortunate enough to be around some of the greatest minds in the game. Ben Roethlisberger, Des Bryant, Antonio Brown. I got to spend 2 years with Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry in Cleveland and see how they prepared week in and week out. So I just feel like I'm going to be able to bring a wealth of knowledge to these kids who those are their aspirations. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
And I want to just bring this up, too, because I loved your answer before we start recording again here about the impact off the field. Could you just touch on that? Because I think that was really important for people to hear, too.
Yeah, one of the biggest things for me that the game of football brought was the relationship side of it. Like I was talking to I was visiting with a couple of my former teammates at the Steelers game. We took our son up to see him play the Panthers this Sunday. And they were asking me, do I miss it? And the answer that I could give them was, I miss the relationships. Like it sounds cliche, but man, you don't really realize how much of a privilege and, a joy it is to be in that locker room week in and week out. And some of the connections that you build. Now, some guys are just associates, but that's in every walk of life. But there's really some guys who, when you get out of it, your relationships stay intact. I think I had 8 groomsmen, I think 6 of them I played with, Mitch, Trubisky is one of my best friends. He's the godfather to my child. Like, those relationships are super important. And especially at the college aspect, I was telling you guys beforehand, like I remember how important my coaches were, and put football aside, how important their presence were at a time when I needed it. Like in a time when 18 to 20-year-olds are away from their moms and they're away from their dads, they're away from their families, and they need a support system. And I'm like, I want to be that. I want to return that favor that my coaches, Coach Brewer, Coach Fedora, gave to me and give to these younger generations in a time when, as crazy as that is, I think they need it the most.
Sure. No, I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, when you just look at it, and that's what people ask me all the time, too, about, when we're on the sidelines, before a game, like, man, do you wish you're out there? And I'm like, absolutely not. But I do miss, the locker room. I do miss, grinding with my brothers at 5 a.m. and it's freezing outside and we're the only ones up on campus and all the relationships that you just mentioned. That's the piece that, you just really think back on. You're like, man, those were the worst times, but they were the best times. Absolutely. Because we grew together and we fought through it. Let's jump into this Tar Heel team, man, because up and down, and I know that you're a former player, firstly. You're a fan and a smart football player, so you know what you're looking at. So there's a lot of different ways I think that people were getting frustrated at the end of the season. But let's just start big picture. Look at what these Tar Heels accomplished to win the Coastal, the last one ever. So you're taking your trophy, you're going home. The things that they accomplished, just how do you feel overall about the season to this point?
Yeah, I think as a fan and even as a former player, like my overall, I'm just proud. Like I know the last month of the season is what it is. When you look back at it as a whole, I'm super proud of how we competed. I thought for the most part all year we competed. Like we played with such football character throughout the year, man. We won a lot of games that we really probably shouldn't have won. I think we were better than we expected to be, especially earlier in the season. But I'm proud, man. I thought the kids and just talking with some of the people that I know in the building, here and, how focused they were in practice, and more so how focused they were in the little details leading up to the week. Weight rooms can be a grind throughout the season. I was hearing that the guys were approaching, the weight room from a standpoint of trying to get better. Guys were on time for treatments. Guys were on time for rehabs. Guys were doing what they needed to do with film and everything and studying. So, as a former player and as a fan, it really, fills me with a lot of pride, because that's who I was as a player. That's how I kind of made my mark. So, super proud. Obviously didn't end the way we want, but looking back on it, I think that's the word that I would use.
That's well said, and Switz. And, it's interesting when you look at UNC and you look at some of the quarterbacks that have come out of UNC recently. Mitch Trubisky, who you mentioned, pretty high draft pick. Sam Howell, he set records. He was incredible at UNC. And now there's this dude, Drake May, who is perhaps better than all of them. When you look at his numbers, was legitimately in the Heisman conversation. What did you know about Drake coming into the season, and did you expect this?
Well, let's not forget about Marquise now.
Yes, Marquise, all right. He's been on with us before. That's my bad.
Okay,
Shout out Marquise.
That's great.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and 3 of those 4 guys that you named are 704 kids. They're Charlotte kids, which I think is
okay. There we go.
Tell them about it.
But no, so it's funny. I spent probably 8 weeks through January and February rehabbing. I put together a little boot camp for myself down in Chapel Hill. And I spent time with Coach Blue and their strength staff, just trying to get back from my last ankle surgery last year that I had with the Browns. So I was around these guys a bunch, more so the receivers, because these guys are picking my brain. We're sitting there watching film. We're getting together on the field. But it was kind of my first couple of interactions with Drake, right? And, my initial impressions were like, man, I don't know if this kid's got it. Like, he's such a quiet, non-out there.
He is.
Yo, that is amazing.
You know what I mean?
He's a little country, yeah.
I'm picking at these players. I'm asking Josh Downs, and I'm like, hey, man, are we going to be all right? And because at that point, we still didn't know who was going to start. It was between Drake and Jacoby. And so,
that is amazing.
And they all, they were all like, yeah, he's not very, vocal, but he's got it. Right. He's got it. Whatever it is, he's got it. And so I was like, all right, I saw him throw a couple times on their workouts at Saturday. And I always appreciated, the arm talent from what I saw early. I don't think it was until now, you can check me, but I think it was the FAMU game. It was it might've been the second or third drive. And I'm not saying I'm whatever the case is, but I remember tweeting hey, I know, put the opponent aside. Forget about FAMU. Drake looks for real. I just saw, and I think it was a couple of drives, some of the throws that he was making, some of his mechanics as a freshman. And I was just like, we got a chance. I didn't think it would end up the way that it was, but man, did he ever outperform any expectations that I might have.
That's so funny, because that's like a different vantage point than my first interaction with him, right? So I'm at practice, and, I'm talking to Coach. I'm like, okay, is there really a difference? Is there really a competition going on here? And he was like, yeah, both guys are having their days. I sit there and watch practice. I say, Coach, there's no competition. This guy is the guy. I don't know what you're looking at, but what I see. And maybe it's just this one day. And so I knew, man, kind of like you said there, where that talent was undeniable. And then same as you, we're at the FAMU game, and, I'm thinking this guy's going to be really good. After the FAMU game, I'm like, this guy's going to be a first-round draft pick. And by the end of the season, I'm saying he's going to be the draft pick. He's going to be the first guy. So
Mac
to
was
see
one
that
of the
transition,
first. It was after week 2, maybe.
Right.
Or week 3, Mac said, this guy's the best quarterback in the league. And other people weren't saying it yet. So shout out Mac.
The arm angles, the position that he was, you either have that or you don't.
Yeah.
You don't learn that. You don't learn how to do that. You just either have it or not.
I think one of the things that impressed me the most, and I was kind of waiting for it. I was sitting there and I was like, I think he's going to slip up. I think he's going to make a mistake. He played such mistake-free football throughout the entire year, which is, it's very rare for a quarterback at that level. And then it's very rare for a quarterback with as little experience as he had. He just didn't force a lot of things throughout the entire year. He didn't make the dumb throws. And that was probably one of his best attributes in my opinion.
I totally agree with you. And just the knowledge, you talk about not making the dump throw, like the knowledge of the offense of, okay, this guy's not open, this guy's not open, okay, this guy, I'm going to throw him open. I mean, it was just, it was crazy to be able to see that from such a young age.
Right.
In your opinion, I'm going to let Kelly ask you about Josh Downs in a second here, because wide receiver love, I know you got some great thoughts on him. I want to know, in your opinion, what happened those last 3 games and what you saw and what you think. And I know you're not inside the program. I know you're not having these meetings, but you're a smart dude.
Yeah.
What do you think happened in those last 3 games?
Yeah. So looking back on the season, man, like I was telling you guys earlier, we won some games that we shouldn't have won. We squeaked out with some wins because we were athletically and had more talent than the guys we were facing, which can help you. After that Wake game, it felt like there was, well, one, I will say this. I think we had some detrimental injuries, really on both sides of the football, which a lot of teams do, and that's not making an excuse, but I do believe that it hurt us. We lost Caleb Hood to a shoulder who was really coming on in the backfield for us. We lost 2 of our best, defensive linemen. Noah Taylor ended up being out for the year. And then we lost Ray, who was really the heart and soul of that defensive line group. So I think, we were kind of holding on by a thread, from an injury standpoint. But I will say, after the Wake game, and I was at the Wake Forest game, I was able to sit down with a couple of the guys pregame, coaching wise, and things felt really good. It felt like we were putting it together, and we should not have won that Wake Forest game. Wake outplayed us. We had a lot of missed opportunities that game, but that was how the ball was bouncing for us at the time. And it felt like the last, month of football, there was a disconnect somewhere. And from I wasn't able to get, any information, but from an outside fan looking in, it felt like maybe we played a little tight, which is kind of weird considering we locked up the Coastal. I think that, there were some things offensively that we had been hitting on all season that we didn't, especially after the 17-0 start against Georgia Tech. I thought we played better offensively against State. I mean, State, I don't think, got enough credit for how good their defense really was.
Agreed.
I thought we moved the ball fairly well against them for the way that, they were set defensively. But we were just playing. This, Eric. You want to be playing your best football in November. In the NFL, they always talk about December football. And we weren't, man. We were trending downwards, and we caught a bad case of momentum that we just ultimately couldn't overcome.
Yeah, I think UNC weirdly played its best football, you could argue, in October. And so then that's what happens in November can be interesting. I agree. I said a lot about the injuries when we were talking about this because basically the entire running back room was injured. Like the whole room. I mean, that is very difficult to overcome. And then the ACC championship, I think I felt bad for Mac Brown because Dabo had literally not played Cade Klubnik like that the entire season. And he just kind of played
Surprise,
Mac.
He was waiting for that last game.
No one expected that. Not even Clemson fans. And you're not prepared for that. So I think all those things came together.
I will say that ACC championship game was a little more frustrating for me from a fan standpoint, being in the stands. I felt like that was one of the first times all year we didn't compete. I felt like, and for whatever,
it was a weird vibe.
It was such a weird vibe because
y'all marched down the field, and I'm like, oh gosh, this is gonna be bad.
I really felt like I was seeing October UNC. Those first, and granted, DJ was still at quarterback, but we got 2 initial stops, on Clemson's offense. But again, the things that really bit us in the butt the last half of the season hurt us in the ACC championship game. Poor special teams, and we couldn't get timely stops as a defense. And then it felt like I was watching the Notre Dame game all over again because Clemson goes up to score, and then we got the ball back with a chance to go tie it. We turn it over in our own end of the field, and that ultimately we just couldn't overcome that against a team like Clemson.
Yep. It was a very interesting game too, a game where I don't think Clemson fans even expected what happened offensively. I want to ask you about Josh Downs because, as you mentioned, you have been around some of the GOATs of the game in the NFL. Josh Downs leaves UNC as one of the best wide receivers in school history. He is going to be a high draft pick and end up somewhere. So how do you think Josh Downs' game translates to the NFL?
Yeah, first of all, I'd say Josh is a better, and I feel like this is cliche, but Josh is really he's actually a better person than he is player. Like Josh comes from a phenomenal family. Like I really enjoyed getting to know Josh, the person, at the time, especially the time that I spent rehabbing there at UNC. We were hanging out, watching, NFL playoff games together. Like I felt like I was like, man, this is a solid kid. So I will say that. But if I had a fraction of the athletic ability and talent that Josh Downs had, I might have been the GOAT. I mean, I'm sitting there and throughout the offseason, I'm watching this kid work out and I'm watching him prepare. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, he's got, 40-inch vertical. He's got all the intangibles that you would want. And so I think Josh is going to, I pray that he gets in a system, because the NFL is all about system and opportunity.
Man, we could have an hour podcast about that.
You know what I mean? And so
yeah.
I think his game translates no matter where he goes. But I feel like in order for him to have the career that he wants and the career that I know he can have, that he needs to get in a system where he can be featured, where he's going to be asked to do some things that he wasn't asked to do at Carolina from a route tree standpoint. But athletically, he can hold up with the best of them, and that's always going to give him a chance. Like he's never going to be someone who he's lining up somebody who's, 90% of the time he's going to line up against somebody who's faster. He's faster than, he's quicker than, he can start and stop, better. And that's always going to give him a chance. So I'm excited to see what plays out. I'm going to miss him. I feel like the 2 years, he didn't play much as a freshman. I feel like the 2 years that we got was not enough. So I'm really gonna miss seeing number 11 in Carolina blue.
Switz, you are being a little humble here, because I believe you were in a 4.3 40.
So I got slower as I got older, because I ended up running in the 4.4s at the combine, and I remember.
Oh, that's terrible.
Well, I just remember my entire time throughout my career in the weight room. I'm looking at these guys that I'm working out with, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like,
I can relate. And
I'm like, as hard as I worked and as hard as I tried and as good as I stayed on my diet, I just physically could never stand up to these kids.
Literally the same. I got you. Mac may be a little different. Mac was able to put on that O-line girth.
It was that country strength. That's all it was. Yep. That's all it was, man. Oh, gosh, that's so funny. Man, I want to, before we kind of jump into this game, I want to touch on this just because I don't think I've seen your thoughts on it anywhere. But, man, it's this new world that we're in right now when you look at collegiate athletes with NIL, with the transfer portal, and the thing that I despise the most, opting out of bowl games. And I understand it from a business standpoint. Sure. I understand it. If I'm a first-round pick, I'll extend it to 32 picks. If I'm a first-round guy, I understand it.
Sure.
If I'm a top 10 guy, I really understand it, just because that money changes really quickly the farther you go back. But some of these cats, man, I was getting fired up about this yesterday, so I'm going to try to stay calm right now. Some of these guys that might not even get drafted, that maybe at best are a sixth-rounder, and you're deciding to opt out to train for the combine that you're not going to be invited to, by the way. What are your thoughts on all this? Because it's really, man, I just think it's like a fad. Like, people think it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I could not even imagine not putting that helmet on when I had the opportunity to for the last time, and then 10 years from now being like, what am I thinking? So I just love your thoughts on it. I'm trying to stay calm. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Man, I will tell you, it is wild times, because you're right. It seems like the norm now. And I remember I'll preface this by saying, like, when I was thinking about leaving Carolina my junior season and declaring for the draft, like, I got really as much feedback as I could. And I remember being told by Coach Fedora, I remember him sitting in his office and him being as honest as he could and saying, look, it probably does not matter what you do your senior year. You could come back and have 2,000 yards receiving. You could set the all-time punt return record. You're probably not going to go higher than third to fourth round. And I remember thinking, So I had a decision to make. Like, do I want to come back? And there was really the thing that drew me back to school was I felt like I didn't want to have any regrets. And by regrets, I mean, like, I didn't want to look back at if I declared for the NFL being like, man, what could have happened my senior season? What could my senior year look like?
Mm-hmm.
And by staying, man, I was able to create some of the greatest memories that I will have as a football player. I mean, some of my best games came my senior year. We played some of the best opponents in the country. And I'll say that I had a whole season to think about, not just a game. And so when we got to the Sun Bowl, I believe it was, we were playing Stanford. And there was really not even a question for me, hey, was I going to sit out or was I going to play? Because I had everything to lose as a player. Like, had I gotten hurt, if we're going to talk about from an injury standpoint, not even preparing for the combine, which is nonsense because you have plenty of time as it is. But from an injury standpoint, if I was going to sit out because of an injury, I had everything to lose. Had I gotten injured against Stanford, I would not have gotten drafted. Like, for everything that I accomplished as a collegiate athlete, like, I still only went 4th round. Now, I say only, but, that's half of the pack. So had I gotten injured, I fully believe that I would have gone undrafted. But there was never a doubt in my mind, like, hey, am I going to sit out or am I play? Like, I looked at that like, hey, I'm playing Stanford, who's a historic program, who's top 20 in the country. Like, I want to go out. I'm playing on CBS. I got some of my favorite announcers that are calling this game. Like, as a competitor, I was like, and you probably felt the same way, Eric. Like, there's no question in my mind. And again, that was a little bit before kind of, this trend. I will say that, like you, I'm kind of split, and there's some cases, I think some unique cases, and where I get it, but you're right, man. For the majority of these guys, like, this is the last time that you're gonna put on this helmet. This is the last time you're gonna put on this jersey. And I love what Bryce Young at Alabama said. I think I saw that today on Twitter. I mean, he kind of hit the nail on the head just about the playing with your brothers and kind of, finishing what you started. And I probably I'm not going to say what I probably am really thinking because I'm getting into this coaching world, but I think you guys can kind of understand a little bit.
Do you think with the world we're in, do you think if you were, like you said, if you're a senior right now and UNC is going to play in the Holiday Bowl, would you, I'm not asking you to say if you'd play or not, because I think you would, but do you think you would at least consider it more than you did back in 2016 just because of how much the world has changed?
I think I would be lying if I said I didn't. Just because of I guess not everything that's at stake, because the same is at stake, but just kind of the nature of and the trend. And
you see all these other guys on your team opting out too, and then you're like, do we even have a chance in this game?
But I think it's something that you're built with. And I spoke with Josh about this. Josh has been kind of banged up throughout the entire season. He's a guy that has opted out. Josh has been banged up. And again, for him, I think there's a little bit more risk involved in playing than in sitting out. So I think he's going to be able to take this time to get healthy, and I'm super happy for him about. But I'm seeing some of these kids like entering the transfer portal, and they're taking visits to other schools while their team is preparing for a game. And it's really mind blowing to me. I mean, you're sitting here, you're playing it's kind of like, my senior year, you're playing in a historic program who's had a phenomenal season, who's probably going to be projected top 5, in the AP poll to start next year. And I mean, it's just a massive opportunity, I feel like. But it's a little bit of the kind of entitlement world that we're living in right now.
It's a new world.
It is. And it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And you just hope that, you can advise and give advice when asked, and try to, make people or help people make the best decision for themselves. Switch, we got to get you out of here. I want your thoughts on the game quickly. But before we let you go, man, just kind of 10,000-foot view. What do you want to see from your Tar Heels as they face Oregon, who's a really good team and has a lot of momentum coming into this thing?
Yeah, I think this is a super interesting matchup for us. I don't love the matchup. I mean, Oregon should really be probably playing for a New Year's Six bowl. I mean, they had that 21-point collapse there against Oregon State to end the year. But I mean, if you look at their roster top down, I mean, they've got some phenomenal players. I think their top 2 running backs and top 2 receivers are sophomores. Obviously with Bo Nix at the helm and him coming back, they've got some really impressive wins throughout the year too. I mean, I think the win against Utah, I remember watching that game and then them picking off Rising 3 times. So this is a really strong Oregon team. I will say that. For us, obviously not having Josh is going to hurt. Longo moving on to Wisconsin. Don't really know what the offensive, who's going to handle that, how it's going to look. Is it going to look any different? Are they going to have some time throughout bowl prep to kind of get it squared away? I don't know. We're going to have some guys step up in the receiver room. I'm glad to see, Antoine is going to be out there. But this is a massive opportunity in my eyes for this Carolina team to kind of right the ship. And I kind of said the same thing about going into the Clemson game. But, come the 28th, I will be all hopeful, and I'll probably be thinking away about how we're going to win this game and probably saying some things I shouldn't. But I'm super excited to watch them play. I think this is a great matchup. I mean, you're going out to the West Coast. They could have drew a 7-5 team, an 8-4 team, but they didn't. They drew an Oregon team that should really be at 10 wins, 11 wins. So I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, no doubt. We are too, my man. Well, this was super fun. We got to have you back on and go for longer, man, because this was a lot of fun. We appreciate you and excited for your future, my man. Man, how fun was that? Duke's Mayo guest, Ryan Switzer. Just really fun conversation. We need to bring him back on in the summer, KG, because we could have spoke for an hour plus. I mean, that dude is done it all, seen it all, the rooms that he said he was a part of in the NFL, and just, man, to be around some of those wide receivers and to be a sponge, like he said. I mean, this dude more than prepared when he gets that opportunity to become a coach. Super excited for him. I'm also super excited to finally share this with the people of the podcast. It's time. It's long overdue. Just had some stuff pop up, guys. I couldn't do it. I have to tell you this Duke's Mayo story. So I told you about the wings. And how I was browsing around on the land of Instagram, and I came across this guy who was making wings on his Traeger, and he used mayo as a binder. And I was like, that is so weird sounding. I don't know if it's going to be good. And then I talked to you about it, KG, a couple weeks ago. I said, what do you think about this? And you said, yeah, I mean, mayo is in so many different things. You just don't even know.
Correct.
You don't even know. And so I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. It was the best wings I've ever made in my entire life.
Wow.
Like, hands down.
Best ever?
Best ever. And you know why? It's because they had twang and they had that Duke's Mayo, and it was an unbelievable, just combination there. You put it all together. It's extra crispy. I'm going to make some again very soon, and I will share it with you guys. But go check it out over on our YouTube page. There's a little short somewhere. If you just scroll down, like right here. It's like right there.
Go to the short section.
And then if you go over to my Instagram, I posted the entire recipe, so you guys can make that as well. It sounds weird, but it's awesome. I'm telling you. A lot of people were commenting, Mayo, what do you – trust me. Look at me. Body, not by accident, okay? So I know what I'm doing there. You can get some more of this amazing recipe. Such fun stuff. Go over to dukesmayo.com. They share so many different things on their Instagram as well. Just a lot of cool stuff you can check out there. KG, we also have to tell people about our giveaway for the Duke's Mayo.
Oh, man. So excited about this, y'all. We are doing a massive giveaway. We're going to be picking our winner on Friday. So make sure you enter. Go to me and Mac's Twitter, okay? At Eric Macklin on Twitter, at Kelly Gramlich. You'll find it there. It's a big yellow graphic. And we are giving away 4 club-level seats to the Duke's Mayo Bowl featuring NC State and Maryland. So get in now. We have had a ton of entries, but that is not to discourage you, because we're going to pick someone randomly. So get in there. Tell us. You need to like it, retweet it. Tell us who you're bringing with you. That's all you have to do. Some of the stories of who they're bringing have been excellent. I've enjoyed reading those. But we appreciate Duke's Mayo for the hookup this year of 4 club-level tickets. Those are awesome seats. And we want to give someone a little early Christmas present.
That's right.
So make sure you get in. And what I know about NC State fans, Mac, is they show up, they are active, and there's a lot of them.
That's right.
So shout out to the NC State fans who are getting in on this giveaway, and make sure you enter now.
That's right, KG. And you talk about the fun, just responses. Like a lot of people, you just literally did what I asked. Can you tell us, who you want to bring, but the stories of why they want them, and the relationship of, man, this is my father. He graduated in the 60s. He hasn't been back since. Cool to see those. But my favorite one that I received was this guy that says, God knows that I need this, so I know that I'm going to be picked to win. Maybe so, man. Maybe so. What? We'll see.
If you don't ask, it can't happen.
That's right. It is a random generator.
We appreciate that.
And big man might select you. He might select you and put you to the top. KG, we have to talk about this.
That's hilarious.
Holiday Bowl. Carolina's traveling the world to go out to play Oregon out in California. Man, this is an interesting matchup.
It is. We've got number 15 Oregon, 9-3, taking on North Carolina, who's 9-4. This game's on December 28th at 8 p.m. on Fox. And they are going out to San Diego. I think I said this last year when we talked Holiday Bowl. San Diego is the most beautiful place in the country. I am jealous. It's going to be the only place, or one of the only places in the whole country this Christmas season that's not Arctic temperatures. So I hope that UNC fans enjoy it and the UNC players. Oregon is a 14.5-point favorite, which is, I think, the biggest spread of any of these ACC bowl games that we're talking about, Mac. The total is 73, which I also find very interesting. ESPN FBI gives Oregon a 70% chance to win this game. I think Switz said it best. This is a game where no one's going to be picking UNC. Vegas is very much out on UNC. There's so many opt-outs. It feels like the entire defensive secondary has opted out for North Carolina.
Yes.
Josh Downs has opted out, which I think we all understand a little more because of the injuries he dealt with throughout the season. And then you pile that on with all the other injuries that North Carolina's had. And then you've got Oregon, who has had a few opt-outs, but the main thing is Bo Nix is playing. And not only is he playing, Mac, he's coming back for another year.
Yeah.
So the motivation, I think, is even higher because he wants to kickstart Oregon's season. They win this game. As Switz was saying, they're probably going to be preseason top 5. He wants to kickstart his own Heisman campaign. There's a lot of motivation there. I'll say the good news for UNC is Drake May's playing. And that is good news because Drake May has been great. But the opt-outs for UNC concern me.
Yeah, me too. And especially in that secondary where they just weren't already great, but now you're putting in young and experienced. Right. I assume not
against Bo Nix.
Right. I assume not as good guys because they didn't play all year. So with that, man, it's going to be very interesting. On top of the change at the coordinator position. And now who's going to be calling plays? Is Drake going to be the coordinator on the field? I'm joking about that, but that'd be kind of cool. Just to see.
Get him a headset.
Yeah, just let him figure it out. Put the little NFL speaker in his ear and let's ride. Just to see all that is going to be intriguing. Man, I was super bullish on Oregon before, but that's a huge number. And I just think Drake's that good to where that's not going to happen.
Really?
Not picking them to win.
But you're taking them to cover.
But I'm taking them to cover. And I think it's going to be a show. I think over-under, I think you go over. I think
over 70.
I think this could be one of the best games of the bowl season. I think it has the potential to be that.
I hear you on all of that. And if UNC had everybody,
you feel good.
I think especially if they had Josh Downs, I would agree with you. But I think, Mac, I'm going to go complete opposite. And this number is large. And it does scare me, but I think the announcement of Bo Nix returning for another year just gives Oregon a different level of pop in this game. So I'm going to take Oregon minus 14.5, and I would take the under. 70 is a lot of points, and I'm wondering how much UNC scores. And I think it also, this game's on the West Coast. I know the West Coast is much further apart than people think. It's not just a quick little drive from Oregon to San Diego, but it is a long trip for UNC, and just the change at the coordinator position. I know, Oregon lost a coordinator as well, but I hate to do this because we've spent this whole episode with Switz and given love to UNC, and I'm wearing Carolina blue.
And you're out.
And I love Mac Brown with all my heart, but I'm trying to be right.
That's true.
And win
the bowl challenge. This is the only one we're different on so far.
I know. So I'm going to take Oregon to cover.
Wow. Here did I think the Tar Heels were going to be the reason I win this competition. I did not. But here we are.
They might be, Mac. Might be.
Here's my thing. So the biggest struggle for the Tar Heels that we saw in that stretch was when people dropped 8. They just couldn't function. You have had a month to figure that out. You better figure it out.
But you still have no healthy running backs.
I don't care. Drake throw it 60 times. We've got to figure that piece out. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, give it back to Amarian Hampton. I don't know why that changed, if he had a little bit injury or if he just didn't know pass protection. I don't care. Put somebody else into pass protection. Put a guard back there who could pass protect. But let's let Drake spin it. Let's let Amarian run it. And defense is optional. Let's just get the ball back and score as quickly as we can. That's why I think it's going to be exciting. I think it has that potential. I am very interested, though. Just what will the offense look like? Is They're longo-ish things. I think you have to. It'd be very hard to install an entire playbook right now.
Yeah.
But, man, Drake, say what you like. Let's run it, and let's run this thing up. That's what I think is going to happen.
Here's my question. And if you answer yes to this, I'll change my pick.
Oh.
Can Switz suit up?
Well, that's intriguing because I think he has a COVID year. So
no, he doesn't.
Can he? Yes, I think he can. Will he? Absolutely not.
If Switz was out there
you feel
with
good?
His punt return game,
you feel good about it?
I'd be changing the pick. But I still think a lot of, as Switz was saying, huge opportunity for UNC to get a 10th win, which would be massive. Yeah. And even if UNC loses this game, Oregon, they'll be probably top 5. UNC's still going to be probably top 20 preseason next year and have a lot to play for, especially with who they bring in the portal, perhaps. So still a great year for UNC. So I love Switz's thoughts on kind of the collapse at the end, but a bright future ahead for sure.
No doubt about it. So we'll see. First, disagreement here from the Graham and Mac Lane podcast. Let's see who's right. We will find out. Super excited, guys. Have a Merry Christmas. We hope you have an awesome holiday season here coming up.
Leave Santa some mayo.
Leave Santa some mayo, as KG said, or some recipes with mayo. It doesn't have to be necessarily just mayonnaise, whatever you want to do. But if it is going to be mayo, better be right here. Duke's Mayo. Come on, hold it down. Big shout out to our producer, Richmond Weaver. Thank you for everything that he does. Make us sound and KG look good. There's no hope. There's just nothing that we can do there. Go check out his podcast, Rich Take on Sports. So many different fun stories, any walk of life that you can think about, any situation, any story that has to do with sports. He has it covered there. A lot of great interviews. But we also need you to go to our YouTube page. If you're not watching it, we're pointing down. We do it every week. Go subscribe. Rate, review, comment.
That's what we want for Christmas, by the way.
That would be great.
If you ask.
That'd be great.
Subscribe.
Subscribe to the channel. Comment. Always fun to read those and hear what you guys' thoughts are on the podcast there. Also go over to Apple Podcasts. Rate, review, subscribe there. But that's it from us. Another great episode of Graham and Mac Lane presented by Duke's Mayo. Until next time, we'll see y'all.